one of the outlets for recreation that I really enjoy is seeing Broadway plays. Whether it's going with my friend Skip and Bernie from Green Bay to the Great White Way to Broadway in New York, or to go to the Benedum Theater to see plays. I really do enjoy to see a good show. And especially I have a preference for seeing musicals, and especially those musicals that really lift up your spirit. And I think if you've had an opportunity to go to see a good musical, you know that there's always that crescendo, that what happens at the very end of the show is, they pull out all the stops, the lights are flashing, the orchestra's going, people are singing, so much so that everybody in the audience gets up and is really involved in it. And you can feel the energy that's really there. Well, I think that that kind of energy really pales in comparison to what it means to be with the Lord. Maybe you've had the experience of knowing the very presence of God in the company of each other whenever you have a wedding in your family, or first communion or confirmation. It's interesting that whenever we take a look at who we are, we're never isolated people moving on the way to God's kingdom in heaven. And God intends us to recognize that, and God intends for us to recognize and to feel and to know His presence in the midst of our prayer. At the very end of the gospel that Father Tom read today, we heard those beautiful lines, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in their midst. And whether we're physically with each other, or we're praying solitary, in our own rooms, or in this chapel, for example, in my own example, we're not praying alone. First and foremost, Jesus is with us. And second of all, other people are as well too. Think about that when you and I pray the Apostles' Creed, at the very beginning of the Rosary, or when we're doing the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. One of the things that we say in the Apostles' Creed is the communion of saints. I believe, in the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins. And whenever we talk about the communion of saints, we're talking about all of us who are part of that family, that are part of Jesus Christ. That's why it's so important for us during the course of the year, like we're doing today, to remember the saints, to remember our ancestors in the faith. That's why it's good in our lives that we remember, our relatives who are alive or deceased. Today's a special day for me. 5 years ago today, my dad died. And, I can still feel his presence as I feel my mom's presence, knowing they've gone before me with the sign of faith. They were the ones who introduced me to Jesus. But there's something about that to know that we're not walking alone. That's one of the reasons why it's so important for us to pray for each other, that we promise our prayers for each other, that we have the belief in God, certainly, but in each other. When we ask somebody, would you please remember me in prayer? That's why we have a book of prayer here in the vestibule of the seminary, where people can put the names of people for whom we need to pray. That's the reason why we have a diocesan website that allows people to put their intentions there. It reminds us that where 2 or 3 are gathered in Jesus' name, Jesus is there with us. And the result of all that, my sisters and brothers, when we stop to think about it, is we begin to see even a little more clearly what it means for us to become holier people as we help each other on the road to the kingdom of heaven. At the very beginning of the Mass today, I gave a snippet about the life of St. Jane Frances de Chantal, and she didn't have an easy life at all. Maybe at the beginning part of it, when in her beginning of her married life, she experienced wealth because of the power influence of her husband, But she struggled. She struggled to be a good mom. And when her husband died, her children grew up, she struggled to be a good nun. But she struggled because internally she had a lot of demons. And it's important for us to look to the virtues of somebody like Jane Frances de Chantal when we experience the same kind of fear of the demons that we have in our own lives. whatever it might be. Every saint can, in fact, speak to us, and that's why we have certain favorite saints who are our soul partners on the road to God's kingdom in heaven. So today I think it might be a good idea for us to think about those words of Jesus in today's gospel, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in their midst. We need to remember those words of Jesus, especially when we feel alone. We feel the burdens of life. We are not alone. Jesus is with us, and so are the communion of saints, those that we're coming to know who are canonized, and those who are soul partners in our own lives. In the end, what that's all meant to do is to give us a joy that far exceeds the kind of excitement that we might experience at the end of a Broadway play. May we experience the fact that we are never alone, and that especially in our weakest moments, Jesus is there to carry us, and so are lots of other people who love us, who are part of the communion of saints.